Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, September 18th. It is the day before the New York Jets home opener, week number 3, as the New York Jets will welcome the New England Patriots to MetLife Stadium for a division rival Thursday night showdown. Cannot wait. I am fired up for this game. Cannot wait to be in the building tomorrow night. The world's biggest air conditioner out at MetLife Stadium. The environment should be great. And today we are going to be previewing all angles of this game. What will it take for the New York Jets to get to 2-1 on the season and beat the Patriots for the first time at home since their 2015 overtime victory with the Ryan Fitzpatrick 2015-led New York Jets? As many of you remember that game, the Fitzpatrick to Decker overtime winner. While the Jets beat the Patriots last year to close out the season to end the streak, they can do two things tomorrow night. Number one, open up 1-0 in the division for the 2024 season. And number two, start a win streak against New England and pick up their first win against New England at home since 2015. Cannot wait. Tomorrow is going to be awesome. The atmosphere is going to be amazing. And hopefully it is a big, big day for this New York Jets team. Like I said, we'll break down all angles of this one. As always, give you the roadmap to victory for the New York Jets as they look to get to 2-1 on the season, coming off a win on the road in Tennessee. Today, as always, before we begin, let me tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at Huga House. You see me wearing my hat right now. If you want the hat I'm wearing right now, they just actually put them back in stock. It is a special edition Aaron Rodgers 20th season hat. Aaron Rodgers wears this hat all the time. If you want the one I'm wearing, this one right here, or the black one, use my promo code BUBS for 15% off this hat and any other of the hats in the store. Aaron Rodgers, so many New York Jets rock the Huga House hats. If you want this one or any of the other ones, click the link or just search up Huga House and app checkout, promo code BUBS for 15% off any purchase. Also, BetUS, America's favorite online sports book. Use my link, which can be found in the description of this video, to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. When you take a look at the odds for tomorrow night's game, the New York Jets come into this one 6.5-point favorites, so they are the home favorites, and the Patriots are plus 6.5. They are the road dogs in this one. Jets minus 305 on the money line. Patriots plus 253 on the money line. Over under for this game set at 38 for a primetime showdown on Thursday Night Football. So if you want to gamble or bet on this game, use my link. 125% sign-up bonus. First 3 deposits up to $2,000. And of course, our friends over at SeatGeek. If you haven't used SeatGeek yet and you're looking for last-minute tickets for tomorrow night's game, there's no better way to check them out than at SeatGeek, because whatever the ticket is, you will get $20 off with my promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. And it's not just tomorrow's game. Any other Jet game this year or anything, plays, concerts, shows, doesn't have to be sports, doesn't have to be football. Promo code BUBS on sports for $20 off. All right, now let's get into today's game preview. New York Jets, New England Patriots, 8:15 Eastern tomorrow. Prime Video, of course, Thursday night showdown. The New York Jets will wrap up a stretch to open up the season here of 3 games in 11 days before they get some much-needed rest heading into Denver next week, who they will welcome home for their second of back-to-back home games. And it's interesting. Obviously, this is going to be an awesome rivalry game. The environment's going to be great. I think if you were a Jet fan going into this game, a couple weeks ago, you were thinking, man, the Patriots are going to be a pretty easy game, a game that you should win by a lot. But New England has actually proven here through the first 2 weeks of the season, with a big win on the road to open up the year against Cincinnati, and then last week going to overtime against the Seahawks and losing a really tough one there, 23-20. They've proven, even with a new coach, even with a lot of lack of talent, and Jacoby Brissett, who is really just a placeholder, of course, for Drake May, they've proven to be a team that is not going to go down without a fight. They've proven to be a team that's not going to get blown out. They're going to be in games. They're going to grind you away. They're going to stick around. They're not going to be an easy team to beat. Are they beatable? Yeah. Should the Jets win this game? 100%. They are the much more talented team. It's at home. They've got the significantly better quarterback play. Top down, Jets should win this game, no problem. But New England does pose some challenges. And New England is a team that I think a lot of people underestimated earlier in the year. And early on here through 2 weeks have proven to be a team that can be a little bit better than I think a lot of people expected. So it'll be interesting to, of course, see how they come out tomorrow. Short week on the road, tough environment for them. How close this game does end up being, but it's a big one. It's a first divisional matchup for the Jets. You know, they already got a conference win last week against Tennessee, so you can get to 2-0 in the conference. You can get to 1-0 in your division. Most importantly, you get to 2-1 overall. This was the way we viewed it for the New York Jets, is if you lose week 1 against San Francisco, you've got a stretch of winnable games after that. You took care of business against Tennessee. Now you head home in front of your home crowd for the first time this year. You got to take care of business tomorrow night. So before we get into the keys, offensive, defensive, obviously X factors and matchups to watch, and of course my prediction to close out the pod, we got to get to the injury update. So of course, the New York Jets injury update entering the week was looking pretty full, but today, this afternoon, we got some good news. DJ Reed and Michael Carter are off the injury report. So DJ Reed dealing with the knee, and Michael Carter, of course, dealing with the ankle that he's been dealing with for a while now and will be dealing with really for the whole year. They are both off the injury report, so they will both be out there tomorrow night, which is big news for this secondary. The only guy that is questionable, the only guy that popped up on the injury report, other than Jermaine Johnson, who, of course, is out, although we all know done for the year, unfortunately, with the torn Achilles. The only other guy is CJ Mosley. Did not practice all week now. That is Monday through Wednesday. The Jets ran 3 walkthroughs, so he was not a part of those. Really just an estimation of practice participation, dealing with the toe injury. Mosley didn't sound very optimistic that he would play tomorrow, but it still seems to be a game time decision. Jets have him as questionable right now. It's a toe. Seems like he'll work it out pregame. I'd be pretty surprised if Mosley plays tomorrow night, especially considering that the Jets believe in Sherwood. They like Sherwood a lot to step up in Mosley's role at Mike linebacker. That I think the Jets view this as, all right, Mosley, take the extra day, take the weekend rest, come back off, and come back next Sunday against the Broncos. So I doubt he plays, but he is listed as questionable, so we will see. As for the Patriots injury report, they are loaded with injuries. It is a pretty packed injury report. Jawan Bentley is out. Vidarian Lowe is out. City So is out. And O'Shane Zimes is out. As for guys questionable for New England, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, Jabril Peppers, and Dietrich Wise Jr. So a lot of guys up front for the New England Patriots are dealing with injuries. The offensive line is extremely banged up, which we'll get to a little bit more of here a little bit later on when we discuss some keys on the defense that involves New England's offensive line. So we'll talk about how banged up that unit is and how that unit's also struggled even when healthy. So we'll get to that later on. But without further ado, let's get into the keys. The New York Jets roadmap to victory tomorrow night. Just a little over 24 hours from this recording, the New York Jets will kick things off for the first time in 2024 at MetLife Stadium. We'll start on offense as we always do. Offensive keys to the game. We'll start first key, pass early and often. This goes against a little bit, I think, what we've been talking about. Not I think, I know. This goes against what we've been talking about the last couple weeks for this New York Jets team. You know, week 1, we talked about on the pod, feeding Brees, right? Establishing the run early on, getting some of the rust, getting some of the jitters out for Rodgers, establishing run early on, opening up the pass, run to open up the pass. Last week, we said the same thing, right? Establish the run, get Brees involved, get Braylon Allen involved, which they did, run to set up the pass. This week, I think it's got to be a little opposite. I also think part of it's not so much just the fact that the Jets run game early in games and the Jets play call early in games, run on first and second down, run on first down hasn't necessarily been working. It's also the fact that the New York Jets have some mismatches and have an opportunity here to really feast against the New England secondary that got pretty beat up last week against Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. And I think if you take what the Seahawks were able to do last week and implement that into this week, I think you can have a lot of success through the air. But I think it's important for the New York Jets, especially early in this game, let it rip with Rodgers. Air it out. I think it's important. You got to pass to set up the run. The last 2 weeks, you've been trying to run to set up the pass. This week, I think it's got to be the opposite. The New York Jets early in games, in both games against San Francisco and Tennessee, way too much run, pass, run, pass, run on first down pass. I mean, last week, 2nd and 20, run up the middle. Inexcusable play call. Don't understand it. I understand you don't want to do something stupid on 2nd and 20, but a run up the middle can't be the answer either. And early in games, it hasn't been working. And it's been causing a lot of slow starts for this New York Jets offense. So I think early tomorrow, you got to take some shots deep, take some chances. Mike Williams is little by little getting healthier and healthier. We saw him last week have that one big grab, the one target that he's gotten in 2 games. Look for him deep. Send Garrett downfield on a go and look for him deep. Take some chances early on. Try and, pick up some big chunk plays and get things moving. When you look at Rodgers through 2 games, it hasn't all been pretty, but for a guy that's still a little rusty, coming off a torn Achilles, it's pretty good. He's completed 60.8% of his passes. That's 31 of 51, 343 yards, 6.7 yards per completion, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 92.2 passer rating, 47.8 QBR. I think if you pass early on, it gets the defense to try and protect against the pass. That forces things underneath to open up. Only 4-man fronts. That's where you can start to open up some of those running lanes, get Breece involved, get Braylon Allen involved, get that duo involved. Especially pass when you look at what Geno Smith and the Seahawks were able to do last week against New England. Geno last week, 33 of 44. That's a 75% completion percentage. He threw for 327 yards, a touchdown, passer rating of 103.1, and a QBR of 73.1. It was a really poor day for New England secondary. Short week, Hall of Fame quarterback, some younger pieces in that secondary, obviously Christian Gonzalez, although the one big miscommunication on DK Metcalf play was on Kyle Duggar. He took responsibility for it, but can't guarantee they're going to get all those things fixed that they struggled with last week. So early on here, take some chances, pass early and often. First key of the game. Second key of the game, talked about this last week, is getting more guys involved, getting more playmakers involved, but specifically the tight ends. Because, I think now with Mike Williams, I think you'll really see Mike Williams take off week 4. That's when I really think you'll see him take off. I think the Jets are just going to try and have him weather the storm of these 3 games in 11 days, get these extra days off after the tomorrow night's game, and then really see him take off in week 4. I think that's really the plan there, but you want to see more Mike Williams as well. Another guy I would like to see is, Xavier Gipson. Where is he? Obviously he's returning kicks and punts and stuff, but where has he been as a receiver? Nowhere. He has not gone on target through 2 games, so you would like to maybe see even a little bit more Xavier Gipson, maybe even Malachi Corley at times. The New York Jets haven't done the best job really over the 2 games of spreading the ball around necessarily, using all their weapons. But specifically the tight ends. I'm very shocked, actually, very surprised that Tyler Conklin has been used as little as he's been through 2 games, especially with the fact that with Mike Williams out, with Malachi Corley, or not out, but on a pitch count, with Malachi Corley early on his rookie year, not going to play a ton. You would think early on, at least the blueprint seemed like the Jets would target Tyler Conklin a lot early in the season to kind of be your number 2 pass catcher behind Garrett Wilson, outside of course, Breece Hall as well. They haven't done that. Tyler Conklin is in 2 games, has had 2 catches on 4 targets. One of those catches came in garbage time against San Francisco, so it didn't even matter. 16 yards, 8 yards per reception. And your other tight end in Jeremy Ruckert, who had a really nice block on the Braylon Allen touchdown, outside of that, has been non-existent, especially from a passing game perspective. He hasn't even been targeted. I think you've got to see a lot more Tyler Conklin tomorrow night. Red zone, I think you love to see Tyler Conklin. Some of these third down situations, I know they've looked Lazard's way a couple times, but Conklin has done a lot of good things over his 2 years with the Jets in third down situations. So you get to those third down passing down situations where it's third and 5, third and 6, third and long. Tyler Conklin's a reliable tight end across the middle that can make some of those tough catches through contact. So I look for Conklin tomorrow. I think Conklin tomorrow is a big key. I think getting him involved is much needed. Extremely talented player, extremely under the radar guy that hasn't been used, I think, to the best of his ability here through the first couple weeks. So second key to the game is get tight ends involved. And that also goes for, of course, all the other playmakers as well. Mike Williams, maybe a little bit of Xavier Gibson, Corley, even some of those gadget plays with those guys. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the passing game, but can you get a Malachi Corley involved on gadget play? Can you get Gibson involved? A screenplay, things like that. Some of those design plays to utilize those guys' speed and their best abilities. My final offensive key is starting fast. The New York Jets, and it kind of two keys, I guess. It start fast, and I also want to talk about featuring some two running back sets, although we'll get to that here in a little bit. But really, my final key is on offense. It's starting fast. And Rodgers talked about this yesterday on his press conference when he spoke to the media yesterday afternoon. He talked about starting fast. They've been starting slow in games, lots of 3-and-outs early. Tough to get into a rhythm early on. I don't think all of that's been on the offense. Like I said, the offense, I think, has been as good as you can expect it to be for a team that still isn't fully back in terms of knocking off the rust and fully built chemistry, right? You still have guys like Mike Williams, of course, still easing back into things. I think they've done as well as they could have, especially with the time they've had the ball, right? Week 1, they barely played. Last week early on, didn't have the ball a ton. So I think that's part of it. And that goes on the defense. Is the defense also has to start fast too. The defense can't be getting gashed early on where they're on the field for ever 2, 10 plus 11, 12 play drives, multiple of those early in games where the Jets offense is just sitting on the sideline cold. It's tough to get into a rhythm that way. So not all of it's on the offense, but even when the offense has the ball, there is part of it where there's been some questionable play calling. There's been sometimes lack of third down conversions. There's been some drops. There's been some mistakes. There's been some penalties. They've hurt themselves a little bit. It's taken them really the first 2 games. It's taken them last week. It took them really an entire half to get going. Week 1, they had that one great drive and that was about it. But when you look at their early starts, when you look at the New York Jets first half drives through 2 weeks so far, this is how they've gone. Against San Francisco, punt, fumble, touchdown, punt, halftime. Against Tennessee, punt, touchdown. So overall, in 10 drives that they've had in 2 halves, they had 6 first half drives against San Fran, 4 first half drives last week against Tennessee. Extremely slow starts. 10 drives in the first half through 2 games. They have accumulated 6 punts, 1 fumble, just 2 touchdowns, and 1 drive that ended at halftime. They took the knee. So if you don't want to count that, fine. Then it's 6 punts in 9 drives. 7 drives that ultimately stalled in their first 9 drives to open up first halves this season. That's got to change. I also think it's important, look, too, you're at home, right? The New York Jets should be able to, as much as they struggled on defense, they should be able to contain this New England Patriots offense. We'll talk about here in a second what the defense needs to do, but you're at home. You score early in this game. You put the pressure on Jacoby Brissett and this Patriots offense that isn't immensely talented, that should be stopped, an offensive line that's banged up on the road, lots against them. You take an early lead, you get going early, you start, making some plays where I talked about earlier, you pass early, you start making some plays where you start hitting holes in their secondary like Seattle was able to do. That's where you start to get into rhythm, and that's where you can look at this game and just say, you know what, you blow them out, and you're looking up, and it's 17-3 at halftime, and you're feeling really good about yourself. I think that's what you got to see tomorrow night. Start fast. So 3 keys again. Pass early and often, get tight ends involved, specifically Tyler Conklin, and you got to start fast. Too many slow starts early in the game, especially at home. Start fast. That crowd is going to be ready to erupt right from this jump. Give them something to cheer about right away. Moving on to the defensive side of the football, and I think this is going to be a key probably every single week. at least when it's a team that has a at least competent running game, and that's stopping the run. That's containing this run game for the New England Patriots. This is a Patriots offense that does not run a very 2024 up-to-date offense. They run a very similar offense to what we've seen over the last really 2 years with the New York Jets, where it's run, 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 pass occasionally. When you do pass, it's like a 5 to 10 yard window. They essentially run an offense from about 100 years ago. That's what they do. They're going to ground and pound. They're going to run it down their throat. You have two really good running backs, two very different running backs where they can switch up the pace of the game. And Brissett's going to throw every once in a while. He's going to game manage. They're going to run it. He's going to make the plays when he needs to. And that's what they're going to do. That's exactly what New England's going to do. And that's what they've done. And through 2 games, they've done it very, very well. They've scored 36 points in 2 games. And when you look at Ramondre Stevenson, he's been a big part of this offense, having success despite the lack of talent. And, of course, Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. He's been the leader, really, of this offense. And that's this run game where they just run, 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 run. Downhill runner. Ramondre Stevenson through 2 games, 46 carries, 201 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. His 46 carries are tied for 3rd in the NFL. He's 5th in yards with 201, and he's tied for 2nd in touchdowns with 2. So through 2 games, Ramondre Stevenson has been clearly a top 5 running back. I know Jordan Mason was great. He was excellent, of course, Monday night. But in terms of actual talent running back, I think a lot of what Monday night was against San Francisco, it was scheme. Shanahan's scheme, you throw anybody there. You throw me in there, I could probably find a way to get a couple nice runs. That's not against any of the players. That's just a compliment to Shanahan, that scheme. Any player can have success really in that scheme. But in terms of like actual running back and running style and ability to just run between the guards, run in the interior, and make plays and just pick up chunk yards after chunk yards, Stevenson's probably the best running back the Jets have faced so far. And they've already faced Jordan Mason and, of course, Tony Pollard last week. Stevenson's probably your toughest test yet. Just the way he runs. And, of course, too, just the amount that he runs, where the Jets have struggled this year to stop the run, but they especially struggle when teams run a lot at them because they've eventually get worn down. That's been something that this defense has shown a lot of, more so last year. Stevenson does all that. So you got to find a way to contain him. It's going to be up to the interior guys. You know, I kind of wonder, I'm interested in seeing if maybe Leonard Taylor is activated for tomorrow. Of course, with Jermaine Johnson going down, Jalen Holmes has been activated on game day the last couple weeks. McGregor, I'm sure we'll see Watts. I'm curious if you ever see Leonard Taylor. He's kind of a bigger body interior guy. You haven't loved what you've seen out of Kinlaw. You haven't loved always what you've seen out of Solomon Thomas against the run, especially the edge guys, but specifically these interior guys, because that's the way the Patriots run things. They have 2 very different backs. They have a back in Stevenson that's a downhill physical runner that runs in the interior. And then you have a guy in Antonio Gibson, of course, who is more of your speed guy on the outside, where you need to hold your edges and kind of keep him in. But it's going to come down to containing Stevenson. Stevenson's huge. If you can contain Stevenson, I think you look at this game and you say, there's really not many other ways this Patriots team can win. They're not going to beat you in the air. They're just not. And we'll get to that. Key number 2, it's get pressure on Jacoby Brissett. For 2 games, Brissett's 30 of 51. That's a 58.8 completion percentage. 270 yards, 5.3 yards per completion. 1 touchdown, no picks. 79.7 passer rating, 62.5 QBR. Brissett's done what the Patriots expected him to do through 2 games. Hand the ball off a ton and do enough in the passing game. Don't make the stupid mistakes. He hasn't thrown a pick yet. Been turnover-free football. That's what they need him to do. That's what he's been doing. That's what Brissett does. He's a quality backup. But getting pressure on him is, I think, big. I mean, you can't. This Patriots passing game is not good, or it's not anything. They should be able to shut it down, especially with DJ Reed, Michael Carter healthy. No receivers really scare you. We'll get to the receivers here in a second and their lack of production. But I think Brissett pressure is huge, especially because of what you saw last week with Seattle. Seattle sacked them last week 3 times. He's been sacked 4 times so far through 2 games. He got sacked once on the road in Cincinnati. We know this Jets offense, or this defense, right? You're without Jermaine Johnson. First game without Jermaine Johnson. A big test for this Jets defense. And tomorrow night is a game where the Jets defensive line needs to have a coming out party. There's no excuses tomorrow night as to why this defensive line should not be able to get home to Jacoby Brissett. I'm just going to get right to it. The Patriots offensive line this year has allowed a 44.3% pressure rate. That's the second highest in the NFL, only behind Tennessee. I know you're without Jermaine Johnson, but all 5 of New England's offensive linemen this week appeared on the injury report. 2 of them have already been ruled out, Vidarian Lowe and City So. Your entire left side's out. David Andrew, your veteran center, is questionable, and Mike Onwenu, your right tackle's questionable. So there is a chance that New England walks onto the field tomorrow night with 4 backups and 1 starter. Layden Robinson has been cleared. He's off the injury report. Now, even if that's not the case, New England tomorrow night will still be without their entire left side of the offensive line. This isn't about Jacoby Brissett. This isn't about containing him. This is about beating up on an offensive line that's not any good. Beating up on an offensive line that's banged up. Will McDonald, 3 sacks last week. Step up. Make big plays. Quinnen Williams. This is a game where he can just feast. They're banged up. Go out there, put together a multi-sack game. Not double digits. I would love 10 sacks tomorrow night at Quinnen Williams, but that's not going to happen. All right. Takk McKinley, one of those guys, step up. Solomon Thomas last week, he had Will Levis wrapped up, couldn't finish him. Finish Brissett tomorrow night. 4 sacks from this defensive line. Can we get it? I don't think it's crazy. It shouldn't be. Against this offensive line, you don't need Hassan Reddick to dominate New England tomorrow night. All you need is a competent pass rush, and you will have success. And if the Jets can just do that tomorrow night, Brissett will be running for his life. Get pressure on Jacoby Brissett. No excuses. If Brissett's got all day tomorrow and New England is this banged up and they're playing with all these backups, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. That would be the lowest rock bottom you can get out of all of what we've seen so far. No excuses. Get pressure on Brissett. Again, 44.3 pressure rate. On a short week dealing with injuries, he got sacked 3 times last week. Get to him. No reason they shouldn't. So that's my second key. My final key of the game, it's just keeping the receivers in check. Last week the Jets struggled a little bit in the secondary. Sauce had a little bit of a tough game. The Jets should dominate this receiving core if you really look at it. When you look at the Patriots receivers this year, KJ Osborne's had 4 catches, 8 targets, 28 yards, 7 yards per reception, no touchdowns. That's your leading receiver. The Patriots' leading receiver has 28 receiving yards. An actual wide receiver, not counting tight ends. We'll get to the tight ends here in a second. When you look at the team receivers, 11 receptions, 18 targets, 85 yards. So all of the Patriots receivers combined have had 11 catches and 85 yards in 2 games and 1 touchdown. Now, as for the tight ends, the tight ends have been a lot better. Obviously, Austin Hooper's had 36 yards in 2 games. Hunter Henry had a big week last week. He's at 127 yards. The tight ends have combined for 13 receptions, 133 yards, 163 yards, and 12.5 yards per reception. Team as a whole, the Patriots as an entire unit, receiving tight ends, running backs, receivers, all of them combined, 30 receptions, 270 yards, 9 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. That's not good at all. And that's not very good at all. Keep him in check. Don't let this be a game where Jalen Polk has a coming out party. Don't let this be a game where Javon Baker makes some big plays. Don't let this be a game where KJ Osborne, puts together a big game. Keep Hunter Henry in check. That'll be something that's important. Brissett looked his way a ton last week and had success looking his way last week. The Jets sometimes have struggled against tight ends at times. They've kept him in check mostly this year through 2 weeks. Of course, the big test with Kittle. That's the other key. It's just keep these guys in check. Nothing stupid, no penalties. Play your game, be smart, and walk away with a W. So defensive keys, contain Ramondre Stevenson, get pressure on Jacoby Brissett, and keep wide receivers in check. Now I want to move on some X factors here. Offensively, it's Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen, man, he's the X factor in this one. He's a guy that I'm looking forward to watching tomorrow night. When you look at him last week, of course, it was great. 7 carries, 33 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. You look at what he did as a receiver, 2 receptions, 23 yards, 11.5 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. Total, he had 9 total touches, 56 yards, 6.2 yards per touch, 2 touchdowns, was the youngest NFL player at 20 years old to score a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown in the same game. Special day for Braylon Allen. I want to see more Braylon Allen tomorrow night. 3rd down and 1, 3rd down and 2 situations, feed Braylon Allen. Those red zone situations, feed Braylon Allen. Get him involved in the passing game. This has been something that we saw a lot of in training camp. He was very good in the passing game. Not something that he was used a lot in Wisconsin was the passing game, but the Jets have made it an effort to utilize him as a receiver, and that came through last week. Do it again tomorrow. When you look at the Breece and Braylon Allen numbers together, they're pretty impressive. The 2 last week had 30 total touches for 170 yards, and all 3 of the Jets' touchdown, including the game winner, of course, by Braylon Allen, the 20-yard run. 5.6 yards per touch for those 2 guys. So Braylon Allen, X factor, keep the killer bees rolling tomorrow night. Defensive X factor, it's the defensive line. I mean, every week, it's the defensive line to me. I will also say Jamien Sherwood. If Mosley is out, I will say another guy to look for tomorrow night is Jamien Sherwood. Really good week last week. Very impressed. Highest graded Jets defender last week. He was the 5th highest linebacker in the NFL. 10 tackles, 4 run stops, had a 78.3 PFF coverage grade, so he'll be relied on in a couple spots to pick up some plays in coverage. Sherwood was great. Quincy Williams was also great. If Mosley can't play tomorrow night, Sherwood will be up to the task for a really big start. He's somebody that will need to step up again, but also the defensive line. Stopping Stevenson, stopping or getting through this off, just dominate the offensive line. It's not any good. They should have no problem. I don't care who's out there. I don't care how many UDFAs. It won't take much. It shouldn't take much if this defense is as good as everybody says, as good as they say they are. So matchups to watch. Offensively, there's an underrated one. Now, I will say the main one, I'm really curious, and this goes back to my key. It's Aaron Rodgers against this Patriots secondary. Like I said, this is a unit that got picked apart last week against Geno Smith. Short week. I'm curious to see how they'll bounce back. And with the Jets hopefully a more of an emphasis early in games on passing, pass to set up the run as opposed to run to set up the pass. I'm intrigued to see what Aaron Rodgers can do tomorrow against a secondary that does disguise a lot and makes it difficult on quarterbacks, but coming off of a really tough week. So where Geno threw for 327 yards. So I think that's definitely something that the Jets can, of course, exploit. And really, that's every week. Aaron Rodgers can do some damage against any secondary, but especially tomorrow. And another matchup to watch, and this isn't one that is going to get a ton of attention, but it's one that should be keep an eye on, and that's Keon White versus Tyron Smith. Now, you may have never heard of Keon White, but this is a guy that's off to an incredible start for New England this year. Currently, right now, through 2 games, Keon White has 11 tackles, 4 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, 3 tackles for loss. He's tied for 2nd in the NFL in sacks, and he's on pace for 34 sacks this year. He had 2.5 against Cincinnati, and he had 1.5 sacks last week. Of course, totals out to 4. 5 of his 11 tackles have been solo tackles. Really impressive start for a guy that had 1 sack all of last year. He's got 4 in 2 games. Not a household name. Not a guy that many people probably heard of. but something to look for. He's off to a hot start. Obviously, something working. He'll go up against the future Hall of Famer tomorrow on the left side, and Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith and this offensive line has been off to about as good as a start as you could ask for. Tyron Smith last week was graded as the third best tackle with his overall grade, and he had a 76.6 pass block grade. The Jets offensive line last week as a group allowed just one pressure, which is the first time that's happened since week 11 of 2012. It's also the first time since 2010, week number 4, where the Jets offensive line all earned PFF pass block grades of 76 plus. So a special week last week for this offensive line. They're going up against a Patriots defensive line that can get some pressure and can cause some problems. So another good test after last week, what was a good test, and the Niners were also a good test early on. Very good signs for this Jets offensive line. So that's a matchup to watch. Tyron Smith, Dion White. And in defensive matchup, I'll say it for about the 20th time, Jets run defense versus Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. And it's especially interesting just to see how the Jets react to both those guys. Like I said, Stevenson is a interior run kind of between the guards, center, downhill, physical runner. Gibson is your outside edge guy that can get to the second level and utilize his speed. But they're completely two different things, two different guys, two different running styles. And you've got to adjust. And that's what makes them so tough to bring down. Last week, they combined for 32 carries, 177 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, and a touchdown. So last week, very successful week for them on the ground. Hopefully the Jets can find a way to slow them down tomorrow. Jets Patriots, baby. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to be in the building tomorrow night. Get the W. Look, the Patriots, of course, I think are a lot more competitive than we all thought, any of us thought. And you've got to give them credit. It's the Patriots after all. They are still a tough defense. They are still a team that can throw a lot at you on defense. They are still a team that can give you some fits. But at the end of the day, the Jets are 100% the more talented team. You're at home. It's a divisional matchup. Get the job done. Win this game. No excuse. Get the 2-1 and move on. Jets win 24-16. That's my official prediction. MetLife Stadium is going to be a zoo tomorrow night, and I cannot wait. Just about 28 hours from now, kickoff. Jets, Patriots. Take them down for the first time at home since 2015 and start up a win streak. Really start to change the tide on this rivalry where it was dominated by New England. Tomorrow night, you can really start to change, especially with a big win. You know, I'm not talking about a 17-13 close game. I'm talking about a 23-10, 24-10, 27-13, two-score game where you really bring it to them. The offense looks good. Defense does enough. Jets get the win. I'll go 24-16. Let's go. Jets, Jets. Stay tuned for the recap pod. Obviously, I'll be in attendance tomorrow. The recap pod might be a little bit later than usual. It'll probably be up the next day. It'll probably be up Friday afternoon, so stay tuned for that. I will have a recap pod up, though. Stay tuned. Just might be a little bit later on than it usually is right after the game. Let's go, baby. 24-16 Jets. That's the official prediction. Stop the run. Get to Brissett. Pass early. And let's win the game. Let's go. Jets, Jets. Appreciate all of you. Talk to you soon.